Have you ever listened to a person talk for less than a minute and known you weren't going to get along with that person? What did they say? Yes, this guy hopped into our Discord group a few months back. He was a friend of a friend, but he didn't think to just add him to our server, not our group chat. We all hop into a call and first thing he does is make some remarks that are very politically sensitive, send some graphic photos, and made some inappropriate remarks. Didn't expect to meet someone and have him offend 6 people in the span of 10 minutes. New guy at work. First coffee break he started complaining about his ex, who had full custody of the kids, for some unknowable reason, and also how he'd like to selch her throat with a rusty KFE. Nice to meet you too. Don't think I'll be taking breaks with you. New guy started at my job. We were outside smoking on first break. Keep in mind, I have never met nor spoken to this dude in my life. He walks up, lights up his cigarette and says, think my severe arachnophobia has transformed into an arachnophilia. I've been watching a lot of Spider AITAH while masturbating. Then he began to describe his new waifu pillow he bought, her name, and his plans to marry her. I was speechless. Asked me, do you mind if smoke? Then proceeded to take out a meth pipe. New guy at work. Super fake by being overly excited and super overly comfortable with everyone in the first minute. He's all mommy, this and puppy, that to everyone, and very overly touchy. We were almost all Hispanics there and everyone was uncomfortable. First phone call of the day, he hangs up, cursing and taking it super personally that someone hung up on him. Daily occurrence in customer service. After about 6 months, I put in my 2 weeks notice solely because I couldn't work next to or with him anymore. He would also get overly gossipy and personal. My boss rejected my notice and transferred him. He couldn't stand the guy either. No one could. I was listening to the Nexiv podcast and the clip of the founder saying he has 225 IQ. If I walked into a room and heard someone say that, I'd walk right back out. There are different levels to being a psychic. I'm on the purple level, so I can talk to the dead, said a new employee at my previous job. Nope. The quiet boy at school sat next to me and told me how hard he felt when he took a sh-t, and how many times he ejaculated that way. I never sat next to him again. I was in a job interview once, and the manager cut me off mid-sentence to jump to a weird conclusion. What do you think the performance of this algorithm would be? Me, oh, it'll be n times. Oh, you think it's going to be n? You think it'll be n? That's ridiculous. There's no way it would just be n. Me, you gotta let me finish speaking. He then cut me off mid-sentence twice more during our conversation. We didn't get along. Dude was a total tool. They talk negatively about someone else in a very judgy way. There was this mom in my daughter's school who seemed to know everyone. She talked to me, and she spoke so bad about these people. Then moments later, I saw her interacting in a friendly way with those she was judging. My eyes rolled so much, I could see my brain telling me not to get involved with her. And I was right, because by the time school year ends, her friends hated her, and they were talking behind her back too. I met one of my new colleagues at a barbecue that was being hosted by our work. A man drove with another coworker, a woman, and a friend of mine, so we arrived together. When I was alone for a moment, this guy, whom I've never spoken to before, comes up next to me and says, "Yo dude, you hittin' that?" Gestures to my friend. I said, "No, and she also has a boyfriend." He very exaggeratedly says, "Damn, yada yada." He got fired 2 years later for Zuli harassing an intern. Literally last night, was at a local pool comp and went to introduce myself to my second round opponent. We shake hands, and his first words to me are, "Weak ducking handshake bro," followed by, "I hope you like banter mate," then proceeded to talk sh-t about every aspect of my game. The worst part was he was actually good at pool, so it just seems like he was generally a cunt. Some of his other opponents got it a lot worse than I did as well. Highlight of the night was when the comp host basically yelled in his face, "Everyone in this room ducking hates you," which received a round of applause. He didn't seem to understand why that was. Just banter bro. Parent of one of my kids, friends at school, said there was a mouse in their house and his wife wanted him to kill it, but he didn't want to kill any creatures. He wants to make friends with them instead. But wife insisted, so he threw his shoe at it and eventually managed to hit it, but it wasn't dead, so he threw his shoe at it another 4 times. It still wasn't dead, so he poured boiling water over it to kill it. It still didn't die, so he poured boiling water over it again. It still wasn't dead, so he decided to leave it alone in the hopes that it would peacefully pass away. The logic of being too squeamish to kill something, and instead decide to torture it to death slowly, in the most agonizingly painful way, absolutely blew my mind. She showed up to a little get-together, and the person who invited her said that they would be taking bets on who could sit with her for more than 30 minutes. $10 per person. Winner kept the pot. I assumed they were just being rude and planned to tell her of her friends' plans as soon as she showed up. She walked in, looked at me and scoffed, and asked if the gray car outside belonged to me. I said yes. She told me that with the money that car cost, I could have bought something nicer. Okay, well, whatever. I went to get a drink and sat to watch the crowd gather around her. I already didn't like her, but she went on to tell everyone about how she could never date someone who had a crappy credit score, or couldn't pay their vehicles off after buying it. Someone who wanted to quit the contest asked for a cigarette. She opened up her purse and showed everyone a fresh pack of smokes, and then told everyone why she doesn't smoke, and why anyone who asks for a cigarette is either too broke to buy them or doesn't plan ahead of times. The guy asked her for one of her cigarettes. She said no and put them back in her purse. She talked about all the cars she bought. Basically, her parents would co-sign for her and pay the car off to build her credit, and she would give them a few thousand to pay them back. She was nuts and wouldn't stop talking. I disliked her, but was also fascinated with her. She was super weird. Years ago, me and my ex-husband went to see a movie with an older colleague of his. Before the movie, we had dinner at like a chain restaurant or steakhouse type place. Staff on the floor was all 20-ish. I never met this man before, but in the first few minutes of sitting down and looking at the menu, he very confidently told us how he came there a lot and flirted with the female staff because they loved the attention. The best part? His daughter worked there. All I could think was how I would literally cringe myself through the floor if I was 20 and my 50-year-old dad came into my place of work. And revet on my co-workers because he didn't understand that they only put up with him cause they are paid to do so. Meet your teacher. Day before my kiddo started kindergarten, and this other parent literally bragged that her kid was completely illiterate, couldn't stand being read to, and she hated reading too. Asked a guy what he does at a business networking event. Well, a chiropractor, but looking to get out. How come? All these Me Too accusations. In another state, I had 3 of them. Good thing none of them went to the bar. We had just moved into a new house. An older gentleman, he was 65, and I was 35 at the time, came across the street towards me and stuck out his hand. I shook it, and he said, "We love new neighbors, as long as they're white." Started at a new job, went for a team dinner, and the very first thing he did was talk about how bad the dating scene was in the city and how ugly all the women are. Dating scene was absolutely fine BW. I pull out of the conversation, and then he just continues to ramble on about how smart he is versus everyone else. Safe to say, I'd been avoiding him since. Was a customer at work. Naturally, I wouldn't be friends. But even in a setting where we could become friends, it wasn't happening. I came up to her to see if she had any questions about our critters. I work in a pet shop, and the very first thing she asked was if parakeets could talk, because she wanted to teach them our shawl slurs. Biggest nope of my life. Oh, you're a Scorpio? I can definitely tell because girl only knew me for 5 minutes when she said that. It was a group project. I was forced to get along with her for the better part of a semester. This was in an astronomy class. Oh, we finally have a female manager? I hope she won't cry like the last one. Maybe she can get male manager number 1 and number 2 organized. My new male employee, referring to me, who he didn't realize was standing within earshot behind him. Hi, let's talk about how my religion can change your life. It's all about the tone for me.